Good evening. Sorry that I'm a few minutes late, but I've just been collecting the dog from the vets. He's had to be in all day today to have some blood tests and things done. So I've just been and fetched him home, and obviously we needed a few minutes to give him some treats for being such a good boy and making sure he's got water and food and a bit of a cuddle before I came on live, because it's never nice when a member of your family is poorly, even if that member of the family has 4 legs and a tail. So so I've just taken a few minutes just to settle him back in and give him a bit of a fuss before I came on. You may hear him barking. He's just gone outside to check that everything is still as it should be in the garden, and nobody's taken over while he's been gone. But we're here now, and I am on a bit of a short time frame today because I've got a meeting that I've got to go to. So hopefully we shall have time to do our bit of crafting and show you everything I want to show you before it's time to head on out again. So in front of me I have the flyer that I've printed off with all the details of the online extravaganza sale, which is currently running, started yesterday and is running until tomorrow. So you've got the rest of today and tomorrow to benefit from this online extravaganza. And this is a chance to, as it says, stock up and save. So in this sale is ink pads, cardstock in some of the colourways, and some of the bundles. So I thought I'd quickly show you, because this is just a great big list of numbers and things, I'd quickly show you what those bundles and things are. So they are 8 bundles, I think, out of the annual catalogue that have a further 5% off of the already 10% saving that you get with bundles anyway. The first one is this Parcels and Petals bundle. So that's a little die that creates these boxes. And you also get this stamp set in the in this bundle as well, that you can create these lovely sort of watercolory effects with. So that's the Parcels and Petals bundle. So that is got a further 5% off. The next bundle is the lovely Pressed Petals suite. So it is this lovely stamp set here, the Path of Petals stamp set, which is really pretty. And we featured that in as a product of the week quite some weeks ago, one of the first ones we did out of the annual catalogue. And with that there are dies, and they're these really nice fancy sort of label dies that you get with that bundle. So that's the Path of Petals. The Free as a Bird bundle is part of this extravaganza sale, and this is the gorgeous bird stamp set, Free as a Bird stamp set, which is just here. And then those fabulous stitched label, nested label dies. So that is part of the sale. So if you haven't already got that, I'm sure you've got it on your wish list. So now's a good time to stock up with that one. And the Dino suite, so the lovely cute little dinosaur stamp set and the dies that go with it. That's another bundle that's in this extravaganza sale. Page 119 is the Mosaic Mood Suite. So you've got this lovely stamp set that sort of makes like these weeping willows and things, and then you've got a punch that goes with that, and the punch fits these greetings that are here in this stamp set. So that's a nice bundle. The Band Together bundle is this bundle here. So that's this really nice flowery set here. And then you've got dies that will cut out these flowers, that will cut out these shapes here. And the dies have got these, you can see there, these lovely banded pieces that go round. So a really nice set of dies for your labels and greetings and those sorts of things. The Bloom and Grow bundle is this lovely bundle here with these gorgeous floral images and the dies that cut those out. So that's a really nice stamp set and die set. Again, we've had that as a product of the week going back some time to when the catalogue first launched. And last but not least, To a Wild Rose. This is a really pretty stamp set. It is a 3-step stamp set with it's a distinctive stamp set, and you've got the dies that go with it as well. And again, as well as dies to cut flowers and the leaves, you also get dies that do labels and things. Let's have a look, see if we can find a picture of those. So here we are. You've got the dies that cut not only the flowers but also labels in like this flowery trellis bit just here. So that's all the bundles. And the other thing that is in the sale is some of the colour collection. So you've got your neutrals, and you've got all your cardstock and all your ink pads that are all, let me see, they are 15% off. So 15% off cardstock and stamp pads in the neutral colours, in the Regals colours, and there's some really nice Christmassy colours in amongst that lot. And this includes the 12 by 12 papers as well, and it includes, if you wanted to buy all of the stamp sets, so if you want the pack of stamp sets, that's included as well in this 15% off. And the other thing that's included is some of the in colours. Now you can get all of these in colours in cardstock, and you can get all of the 2018 to 2020 ink pads, and you can get all of them apart from the purple posy in the 2019 to 2021. So you can get all the cardstock but only those 4 ink pads, because there has been an ongoing problem with the quality on the purple posy ink pad, and they've just not been able to get it up to the standard that they expect. So because they can't get it up to that standard, they've made the decision to withdraw it. So you can get stamping right markers, you can get all the cardstock, you've got papers that coordinate with it, you've got ribbons that coordinate with it, but you just can't get that ink pad. But all of those things are in the extravaganza sale, and I shall put a link to that when I get round to editing the video later. So do go and check that out. So as I say, you've got today and the rest of today and tomorrow to make best benefit out of those bargains that are to be had. Got a quick drink of water, and we'll get back to what is our product of the week. So do pop on and say hi if you're here watching live. Do let us know how you're going, what sort of a day you've had, and as and when any of the lovely ladies from Australia pop on, do let us know how things are for you. I was listening to the news again today about the red warning for fire and things in Victoria. Really scary, horrible stuff. So do let us know that you're all okay, and that you're safe and well, because we like to keep a check on you. But do also share these videos out. So hit share these videos out as well. It's really helpful for me in terms of running my little business, and it means that other crafty friends that you've got can come and join us as well. So Peaceful Boughs, it's this lovely, and not bowels, as somebody thought I was saying on Monday, boughs, B-O-U-G-H-S, as in the tree branches. So we have a stamp set with these lovely sort of 3 different size stamps and the 2 different pine cones, a nice little snowy stamp and a couple of nice greetings. And then we've got the fabulous dies that go with them, that will also cut out your greenery and cut out your pine cones and a couple of labels. So a really useful stamp set, and it's really beautiful. And the thing that I really love about this combination, this bundle, is that it really, really lends itself to home decor things for wreaths and frames and decorating candles, decorating packaging. It really does lend itself to all of those sorts of things. Those lovely dies just really, do lend themselves to creating some lovely decor pieces, some decoration pieces, as well as stunning cards. So I've got a couple of things that we're going to do today. Let's have a bit of a recap on what we did. So this was our card that we made on Monday, where we tried that technique where we brushed some white embossing powder on the end of our pigment stamped leaves in the background there, and then heated it to give it that snowy effect. So that was really lovely, and added in those metallics. This is the card that is currently doing the tour with the county tour box. A really nice simple card, just created by making that masking off that centerpiece in there and stamping either side of it. It's just really nice and simple, but really effective. This is a frame that got that light shining straight in the middle of there. This is a frame that we created that I had on the retreat, and it was inspired by a card that Michaela Titheridge created. She's a demonstrator fairly local to me, just here actually, but she's also one of our artisan members this year. I mean, she created a beautiful card similar to this, and I took that idea of that card and created a box frame with it, and added in this sort of scroll effect with the greeting and some ribbon, and yeah, made up that little box frame. So that's what I mean about it being really useful for home decor pieces. And obviously you could, I did get out a little MDF wreath, but I haven't got around to doing anything with it yet. But likewise, you could cover this in hessian or whatever, and then just have some of the things on there. You could perhaps add in some of the really lovely baubles or something, but that you could very easily create a really lovely hanging wreath with this stamp set and die set. So it really is very versatile, and it's got so many uses at this Christmas time. But one of the things I wanted to do, one of the things I promised at the beginning of the week was that, or at the end of last week, was that I would show you how I created a book card, because my swaps that I took to Germany with me were a little friendship book, and I had a few people ask me how I created it. So I thought that we would start by creating a little book card. Now this one is going to be slightly bigger than the one I created for Germany, but having got the general idea of how you do them, you can scale these up and down to your heart's content, really. So what I've got here is half a piece of A4 cardstock, and obviously, as I say, you could scale it up and down. If you don't use A4 cardstock, you could just, you know, create. What we're doing is creating a standard card base here, so it's cut at 14.9 here, scored at 10.5. So we've just got a standard card base just there. So what we're going to do now is we are going to score. I need to score a centimetre. I'm going to score a centimetre in from that centre score line. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to start from the bottom and score up. So I'm going to rest my card so it's at 9.5 centimetres. So I know that this is now half a centimetre away from that score line. And what I've done here, whether you can see this bit of washi tape, what I've done is I've got my ruler and I've measured a centimetre up from the end of that of this guard piece just here. So from where the end of the card is, I've marked a centimetre with some washi tape, because I need to score, I need to take my score blade up to the top, I need to score from the bottom to a centimetre short of the top. So this is my marking point to show me where to stop. And obviously I've got on your little blades just here, I don't know if you're going to be able to pick that up, you've got your little marking on there that shows you where the sort of point of the blade is, if you like, where the stopping, what my stopping point is. So when that little groove in that scoring blade reaches the end of this washi tape, that's the point at which I'm going to need to stop. So about there. It's not, you know, life and death if it's out by a millimetre or two, but I don't know if you can see that. But now I've got a score line going all the way up there, and it stops a centimetre short of the top. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my card so it's resting up against a centimetre up there, and I'm going to trim with this cutting blade this time another centimetre, and I'm going to stop where it meets that second score line that I've just put in. So not the centre score line, that score line that I've just put in. So I'm going to take it across until that meets that line just there. So now what I've got is I've got my card scored in half. I've got a score line coming up here, and it's cut as far as that score line. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper snips and I'm going to go from where that cut line meets that score line to that corner just there. And can you see I've now got, I don't know how well that's showing up, but I've now got the top of my book. So I've got the piece coming down here that forms the spine of the book, and then you've got this top bit just here that creates that sort of impression of having a book. Now what we need to do, so we've just taken that out of there like that, so we've taken that cut bit out of there. We're going to slide this cut bit all the way down to the bottom like this. You can sort of alter your sizings as much as you like, because you're always going to use that cut bit on the bottom as your guide to snipping off this bit just here. So that's been my guide to snipping that bit off just there. So now we have got a book shape, and if I actually fold it along that second score line, you can very definitely see that book shape now. So there's your basic book. So we've scored up here, cut along there, and then cut at an angle just there, and then we've used that piece out of there, brought it down and used that as our guide for cutting this piece off just here. So that piece and that piece is now equal. Okay, so that's our basic book fold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that to one side, because I have got here's one I created earlier. So what I've done here, I've got my basic book fold just the same, and I don't think I'd better pick up. Yep, I've run that through the subtle embossing folder to give it sort of almost like a leather bound look. So the one I did that I took to Germany with me, I actually had a panel on the front that I ran through the 3D scripty embossing folder, and then I just rubbed some Versamark over the top and sprinkled some embossing powder on it to give it sort of like a old sort of words on the front. But this one I've just run through the embossing, that subtle embossing folder, to give it a subtle effect. I've got some bits here that we're going to stick on. We're going to stick that on in a minute, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my Versamark ink, and I'm going to take some copper embossing powder. I've decided on copper this time. And heat gun is just there. So I'm going to, where that second fold is, so not the halfway fold, that second fold, I'm going to fold it along that fold just there, and I'm going to take my Versamark ink and I'm just going to run that along that fold like that, and then I'm going to take, I open it up again, take the copper embossing powder and run it along that edge. Can you see where you've got that powder now running along that edge? Let's bring this light in. So let's heat that up. It's just going to give that sort of hint of a bit of sort of copper leaf binding along the edge of our book. So there we go, catching in the light just there. We've got some copper embossing. And then while I've got that copper embossing powder out, I have also got somewhere a little label. And I'm going to stamp this sentiment. May the spirit of peace gently fill your heart and home in this most wonderful time of the year. So let's take our Versamark and ink that up. And actually let's get our embossing buddy first. Give that a bit of a wipe over, just because we cut that out earlier and it has been in the basket. May have picked up something sticky. Sprinkle that with copper embossing powder and heat that up. There it goes. And that's all beautiful and shiny. Oh. And that's going to go on the front of our book there. And the other thing I've got ready, I've already die cut some, but I have die cut 3 of the little pine cones, so both the back piece and the front piece, from the copper foil. And I've also cut 2 small and 1 medium size of the boughs. And what I've done with these, and I'll add some to this last one in a minute, is I've taken some of the embossing paste and I just used my finger and have dabbed some of that embossing paste onto that bough, just to give it the impression of being covered with snow. So now my embossing paste is starting to get a bit dry. I did give it a really good spray with some water earlier, so I'm just literally digging my finger in there, getting messy, and then I'm just going to dabble it. If you really don't like getting messy, I'm sure that you can find some sort of tools and things that you could do this with. But I never mind getting a bit messy. So I'm just going to dabble some of that embossing paste on there. And it's a little bit chunky in places, this one, but actually, as long as it sticks, it doesn't really matter, because it just gives the impression of being built up snow. And there we are. Let's move that to one side. Let's get a baby wipe and just get the rest of that off my fingers. So that's just adding a bit of snow. So hi Wendy. Adding a bit of snow to our boughs as well. So these ones are dry, so let's put a bit of glue on the back of those. Oh, that glue is getting towards the end, and sometimes when you get into the end of the pot it does go a bit splodgy. No, it doesn't want to come out at all. There we go. We'll have that there. We will stick this one on down the bottom here. This one obviously is still a bit wet. Let me grab another glue. See if this one's a bit better. That one's a bit better. Put some spots on there. And we'll have that one about there, I think. I think we'll pop this up onto some dimensionals. These are the little bits round the side. Now you always want to make sure that you use all of your dimensionals, including the little bits around the side, because they're all perfectly good to go. And in fact, sometimes these side pieces are really useful. They come into their own. So don't ever throw your sheet away until They've absolutely all gone and there's nothing left on it. So let's put that on there like that. And then we have our little pine cones. So I think I'll put this one down flat. And I'll raise this one up. And then we'll have this one going up the top here. We'll put that onto a dimensional as well. Make sure that's all tucked out the way and it's not going to be visible. There we go. So there's our book cover with our lovely frosty, snowy pine boughs on it and our copper foiled pine cones. So now we need to look at doing our insert. So I've just cut a piece of very vanilla card, and this is just measuring 14.4 by 10, the same as you do if you're doing any mat for a card really. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down so that it's tucked up against the edge of this card in the inside, so it's tucked right into that fold, and so that it is laying level with the bottom of my card. And then I'm going to take my scissors and snip off that corner, so when we come now to stick it inside, it's going to fit beautifully and neatly. But what I want to do before I stick that down is I want to do a bit of stamping on it. So let's just get some Mossy Meadow and some soft suede ink out. So this card is, so the card base itself is in Mossy Meadow. So that's the colour we will use for the inside. It might be that stamp, that block that we want. Let's, I think we'll just take this small little one just here. And we'll just stamp a few little boughs in there, and then we'll take the small pine cone and some soft suede ink, and we'll just stamp little pine cone in there. And then if we take this Season's Greetings and we'll stamp a Season's Greetings in the middle. So that is ready now to come on the inside. But the other thing that I've got here is I've cut some of this Merry Christmas Berry Vanilla and Copper ribbon. So I'm going to have that so it's sticking out of the bottom, a bit like a page marker or a bookmark. But we're going to stick that in before we stick our insert in. So we'll have that so that that bottom Merry Christmas is showing. Stick it in place with some double-sided tape, because we're not going to be able to see that once we've stuck our insert in. And we'll put some glue on the back of this insert. Going to need to stock up on my glue, I think, at some point. Let's put that in there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this just fine black pen. It's one of the journaling pens. And I'm just going to draw in, and it doesn't matter if these are a bit wonky, because it just actually lends it a bit more authenticity in terms of, you know, the pages sort of being a bit warped and bent, and we'll just draw in our pages across the top there. If you want to, you could put a side bit down here to line that up. Let's just line up that piece there with that piece there. We'll come down and we'll just miss out where our little boughs are down the corner there. So there we have your inside of your book, your front cover of your book, your pages, and the fact that that is scored and folded there does lend it that sort of 3D look to it. So a nice little book card. So it showed you how to do those little book cards, but it's also added in those boughs, the idea of adding in some embossing paste, bit of copper embossing. So that's our first little card. So that's a book card. So the other thing I thought we would do, and I will very likely need these inks again, is I thought we would do a gift bag. So what I've got here, let me move that little card out the way for a second. What I've got here is a piece of the sort of wood grainy, thank you Carla, it's a piece of the wood grainy paper from the Come Together paper pack, which is the paper pack that's sort of like the autumn leaves and pumpkins and those sorts of things. It's got this lovely pretty peacock check in it and pumpkins and this nice foliage. So it's sort of like the really autumny pack, and it's got this nice wood grain paper which I thought would work beautifully with these pine boughs to make a little Christmassy gift bag. Quick slurp of water. So I've already done some scoring on this just to make it a little bit quicker, knowing that I was going to be a bit time strapped this evening. So what I've got is a piece of the DSP that's just half a sheet, so it's 6 inches wide. So I've just cut, so you'd get 2 of these bags from a 12 by 12 sheet. So it's 12 inches wide, 6 inches that way. So it's half of a sheet, and I've just scored that at 4 inches. 5.5 inches, 9.5 inches and 11 inches. So in other words, that panel and that panel are 4 inches wide, and these side panels are 1.5 inches wide. So 4, 5.5, 9.5, 11, and then that gives you that inch on the end. And that we could trim down a bit, but I'm not going to worry. And then across this bottom here, I've scored it again at 1.5 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to form the bottom of our gift bag by cutting up these score lines. The light isn't brilliant in here this evening. Need to have a look at that. And this one. And this one. Now this bit here we're going to cut off altogether, and I'm going to do that at a bit of an angle, and we'll cut this off at a bit of an angle as well. That's going to make our tab to stick our bag together. And actually what I'm going to do then is go along and I'm going to take a bit of a smidge off of all of these as well, just because that helps it to sit nicely when we bring it together. Ooh. That's better. And last but not least. Okay. So this is the basics of our bag. We've got our 2 tabs that are going to fold in this way, 2 tabs that are going to fold in that way, and that's going to stick there. So let's stick this bit first. So you can either do this with glue or you can use double-sided tape, whichever works better for you. I'm just going to get a bit of Tombow on there. If I fold that over and fold that over that way, so that meets up. And then we'll fold in these bottom bits. And we'll have that as our back. So we'll fold that one in and we'll just put some glue. Put a little bit of glue on there, a little bit of glue on there, and some glue on there. Fold that over. And then what I do tend to find quite useful is to get something like a ruler, and we'll just give that a press so that we know that that's all stuck down. So there we have our basic little box, but because it is paper, we can just then squeeze those sides to make our little gussety bit, because it's quite amenable to that. And then somewhere I've got my big crocodile that I'm going to use to punch holes. There are various ways of punching holes, some sort of a hole punch, and if I punch that all the way through those layers there, then when I put my ribbon in, that will keep that beautifully shut. So then we've got some ribbon to go in there. So now, of course, I've stuck that together, and I was actually going to stamp on that. That wasn't very sensible, was it? So what we'll do is we won't stamp on it. We will do some die cutting instead. I was thinking I could stamp directly on there and that would be fine. But it would have been had I not stuck the bag together first. Too much going on, I think. Worrying about puppies at the vets. And not that he's a puppy, he's about 14, which I think is what it makes me even more worrying, really, because he's an old boy now. But he's still my puppy. So let's tie that in a bow at the top there. So we could have made that into handles or... Okay. Let's trim that off. And there's our basic little bag. And then let's... Actually, what I might do is I'm going to go for a walk. Let's take my microphone with me and see if I can reach over to my scrap box. Excuse me while I rustle around in here. Oh, it's not real. What we'll do is I've got a little bit of, do we want Sahara sand? Actually, I think we want grey granite, I think is the colour we want on there. Let's find some of that instead. better, isn't it? So I'm going to die cut a stitched circle out of grey granite. So I'll just run that through my machine. And we have a nice stitched circle now that I think we will put on the front there, and we'll go back to the idea of doing a bit of stamping. Where there's a will. So I've got some mossy meadow here, and again I've got that smaller of the boughs, and let's do a bit of a mixture of first and second generation stamping on here. So first generation is when you ink it up and stamp it. Second generation is when you don't re-ink it but just stamp it a second time. So there we are, we have a little circle of pine boughs there. I'm going to take soft suede and let's stamp in a few pine cones. Then I think perhaps if we season's greeting is going to fit across there. Perhaps not. Perhaps we'll look for something a little bit different to go in there. And I know somewhere in amongst the things that came back yesterday from the class at Great Donington yesterday evening, I've got the Itty Bitty Christmas. And the nice thing about the Itty Bitty Christmas is there's lots of little sayings and things in there. So what shall we have? So we'll just have that little happy Christmas. That's just there. Oh, that's the end of the microphone just popped off. So let's just add in that little tiny happy Christmas, and we'll do that in soft suede as well, I think. Let's just shut up some of these ink pads so that we don't rest on them. And then what might be quite nice is just to get some of this, my scraps of mossy meadow card, and perhaps we'll just die cut I think that one. Let's see how that goes. So I'll run that through my machine as well. Got it here behind me on the chair. So we just need to pop out those little pieces in the centre. Like that. Beautiful. Right, let's put a little bit of this is the runny one. And we'll put that down here. We'll put put some dimensionals on the back of our stitched circle. Like that. And then I think we'll have a little dig about in our gems and such like drawer. And decide what we would like to add. Oh, looking at those, actually I was going to put some of those on the book. We'll have a look at one of those in a minute. So I think we might add in just a few of these little red gems, just because we've got that nice bright red ribbon, and it will just bring that in together. If we've got a few little red berries sprinkled around on here. So there we have a little cute little bag, just created out of half a sheet of DSP, a bit of ribbon and a bit of a pine topper. Let's bring our book back in and decide whether we would like to have a couple of little, look at those, a couple of those on our book. Excellent. Right, so there we are. I think that this sort of little quiet, really rather unassuming stamp set and die bundle that just sits in the catalogue and is so easy to pass over is actually really rather beautiful. And when you start putting together some of the things you create with it, you can do some really simple cards or get a little bit more complicated, but they just are stunning. What safe place have I put my frame? There it is. And there's the frame. So I think it's a really lovely stamp and die set, and one that you would use time and time again. And of course it doesn't have to just be for Christmas. You can do some really nice autumnal things with those pine cones. They don't have to just be for Christmas, but they certainly do come into their own at Christmas time. So I hope you've enjoyed those. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make little book cards and reminders about gift bags. Yeah, so thank you for joining me. Keep well, everybody. I will go and see how my patient is doing, if he's ready to have his little bandages taken off his leg now, and whether he needs another tickle by the ears. I'm sure he does. And I will be back to see you all on Monday with another product of the week. So see you then.